and welcome to this week's YouTube video. Today I'm going to show you how I painted Ted and Hugo, and I wanted to talk about how to use colour in your paintings. Before I show you the time-lapse video, I wanted to break this painting down for you and explain why it is a hard painting to paint. I am working from a reference photo which has been taken in extremely cool light, but that's not a disaster because I know the rule that cool light equals warm shadows. So even though there is a lack of information in my reference photo, I know my shadows in this area here will be warm. But because the light is very flat, I have a very limited value range in these areas here. So if I turn this photo into black and white, you'll see what I mean. So I don't have a great deal of contrast in those areas to help me create the sense of form. The flat light is also affecting my temperatures for both the body areas of Ted and Hugo. Remember, shifting temperatures will also help me create form. Also here, I am dealing with two areas that are both sort of whitish, but have an absence of colour and contrast. So my 5 essentials for a successful painting being drawing, value, edges, colour and temperature, 3 of these are missing in this reference photo / painting. This makes it hard for me to create form. So let's have a look at the video and I will explain what I did to overcome these issues as we go along. Firstly, apologies for the camera movement. I kept hitting it with my head a little bit as I was getting up to view the painting from a distance. So there is a bit of movement here and there, but I've tried to minimise it the best that I can in post-production. If you've not seen my videos before, my process is a bit of a mash between indirect painting, that's painting in layers, and alla prima. I think it's really important that you find a process that works for you, and you shouldn't get too hung up about correct technique. It is the end result that matters, and we all think and see things differently. For example, I am both dyslexic and dyspraxic, and I think the dyspraxia makes alla prima painting for me very challenging. I'm far too heavy-handed for it, but I find working over the top of an underpainting very difficult. The monochromatic painting completely overtakes my senses, and I struggle to see anything but the underpainting, making it impossible for me to judge colours. So this is a method that I use that works for me, and I would really encourage you to find a method that works for you. So I start with a raw sienna wash over my canvas. Again, this is a bit of a dyslexia thing. If I was using a coloured overlay over text to help me read, this would be my preference. So you don't need to use this particular colour if you wanted to cover it in, say, raw umber or perhaps in a grey, for example. It's completely up to you. Choose what works best for you. I start by blocking in my shapes very loosely and lightly with the general colours I think I'm seeing. I'm using Gamsol to thin my paints. I will leave the white areas as just raw sienna, as this comes in handy later on when I try to tackle my whites. I'll let this layer dry overnight. The painting is very thin, so it only needs around 12 hours to dry before I'm ready to go at it again. The second attempt is where I'm really having a good go at what I think I'm seeing. This is where trying to judge what colours you think you're seeing is important. Remember, if you are working from a photo, this is going to affect how you see the colour. I work from multiple screens to try to alleviate the tricks that your eyes tend to play on you. For example, white is a very tricky colour to paint. I use multiple reference photos, so I have one in black and white, I have my iPad screen, and I also have a printed version as well. You also need to distinguish between what you are seeing and what you think that you are seeing. So for example, your brain tells you that it is a white dog. So the temptation is to use black, white and grey. But this will just produce a flat painting because there is no colour in black or white or grey. So I would not be able to get anything other than cool temperatures and a lack of colour in this painting. So the sense of the object occupying the space would not be possible without my temperature shifts. I need to get some colour into this painting, and mixing my greys from complementary colours will produce a more successful painting. Out of the 5 essentials for a successful painting, so again that's drawing, value, edges, temperature and colour, colour is the one you can push the most. As long as the 4 others are correct, you can be off the mark a little with your colour and it still look realistic. Remember I said the flat light in my reference photo was causing problems with this painting? By using my knowledge of colour theory, I can adjust what I am looking at and still feel confident this painting will work. This is where I would caution using paint straight out of a tube. Whilst this will give you a very vibrant, saturated colour, you are more likely to end up with haphazard mixing, where your objects do not relate to each other or their backgrounds. I think it is much better and safer to mix your colours from a limited palette. If you are not sure what colours to use in a limited palette, have a look at my YouTube video, Essential Colours for a Versatile Palette. I am a big fan of keeping things as simple as possible, and limiting your palette is a surefire way of ensuring you have a unified painting in terms of colour. And I would go even further with this and say that working in colour opposites or complementary colours will always guarantee you a successful painting in terms of a convincing object occupying its space. So I'm just going to explain exactly what I mean. Simply put, colour opposites are red and green, blue and orange, and purple and yellow. If I mix these 2 opposites together, they cancel each other out. If you mix the 2 colours in equal amounts, that is 50% yellow and 50% purple, I will get a grey. One colour neutralises the other, but the grey it gives me will be a rich grey, not a flat grey like I would get mixing black and white. And I can control the temperature by adding more yellow if I wanted a warmer grey, or more purple if I wanted a cooler grey. Not only that, if I have mixed my purple, say for example with cadmium red and ultramarine, I could then have a more red purple or a more blue purple. If I then mix this purple with a muted yellow, for example yellow ochre light, this then gives me a very subtle range of neutrals spanning from grey to yellow ochre and to grey to muted browny purple, depending on how much of the cadmium red or ultramarine I add. And it is these colourful but subtle neutrals I want to use in my painting, especially to describe my white areas. I can pack them full of subtle temperature shifts, and if you lay a purple grey next to a yellow grey, they look great together because they are colour opposites or complementary colours. This is how I attack a white area with limited value and temperature shifts that I cannot see in my reference photo. I know that my shadows are warm because cool light equals warm shadows. If I follow the basic principle of warm to cool to warm to describe my objects, so my darkest shadows are warm, my halftones are cool, and my lightest areas are warm, I can use my colour opposites to help me. So I could have a warm purple in my darker areas, perhaps a neutral split of 50% purple and 50% yellow for my halftones, and then more of a yellow for my lighter areas. In this painting then, in the larger dog's white area, I have used a warm purple for the darker areas. I have used a number of different mixes for the halftones. I am not saying that you cannot use black in your painting process at all. I have a number of videos on my channel where I have used black, but I would never use black plus white to paint a grey object or a white object. Remember that white takes on all the colours around it, and there is no colour in a grey mixed with black and white. I hope you have found today's video useful. Please like and subscribe if you can, and check out my website sarahhallidayart.com, where you will find examples of my work and details of online classes that I run. Thank you for watching, and see you for the next one.